Hi friends, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming special election and primary runoff election and something related to it from an abolitionist perspective that I'm calling voting while not casting a vote. So if that sounds interesting to you, please keep watching. I'm sorry it's going to be a little long. I don't have time to split things up and plan lots of short videos, so I'm going to give a lot of practical information at the front end of this video about the upcoming elections, and then I'm going to get into what I'm going to do as an abolitionist related to one of these elections. So first of all, to understand the elections, you have to kind of understand the overall picture. Most people are familiar with the presidential election, which is every 4 years, and they know that they can vote in the primary before the presidential elections, which are held in November. So the primary is in March. Then 2 years after that, there's another primary election, which we just finished in March of 2026, and we're leading up to the November general election, in which there is not a president on the ballot, but we are going to vote for senators, congressmen, and other important offices. We have in between some other more minor elections that are actually still really significant for their effect on our everyday lives. And there are actually 2 elections here in Montgomery County coming up in May. So I'll explain the second election first, because that's not as much a focus of this video. The second election is May 26th, and this is the runoff election for U.S. Senate position between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. There were 3 Republicans running for the U.S. Senate seat, and none of them got 50% of the vote. So the 2 that achieved the highest percentage were Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, and they now have to run against each other in a runoff election, and then whichever Republican wins that will be in the general election in November. This is a little basic for people who have followed politics, but I know my friends vary, and some people need this explanation of, exactly how things go. And there's so much on the ballot that I myself, just now looking it up, realize I need to do a little more preparation and study for. There's also a runoff election for Texas Attorney General and Texas Railroad Commissioner. I am not aware of any runoffs for any Montgomery County focused offices. So that is May 26th, and there will be a period of early voting ahead of that. And for up-to-date information, I recommend you go to mctxgop.org, and that's the Montgomery County Party of Texas website, and they will direct you to more information for your ballots. And if you click on the drop down and click news, sometimes you can find other useful information. Okay, so now I'm going to transition into some information about the Texas Senate seat. This is not for U.S. Senate. This is for Texas Senate. There are 30 Texas senators, and so their districts are a lot larger than the Texas House districts, because there are 150 Texas representatives and there are only 30 Texas senators. So that part of the legislative body, each official has that much more power and representation. For the last some years, the Texas Senate has been quite conservative. but not always willing to really fight conservative battles, if I could put it that way. So it is an important body to try to keep conservative. And what happened in Texas Senate District 4 is we had a senator named Brandon Creighton, and he decided to resign last fall or winter in 2025 and become the chancellor of Texas Tech University. So he resigned his position, leaving his seat open. And the local district attorney of Montgomery County, Brett Ligon, decided to resign his position as district attorney and run for that Senate seat. So Brett Ligon was on the ballot in the primary in March, and he won. He had a not very competitive person running against him, and now he has to run in this May 2nd special election. So remember, there's an election later in May 26th for the runoff elections. This is different. This is a special election on May 2nd, and you really should look up your sample ballot, because each jurisdiction has some different little races. My area doesn't really have very many things going on, but there are some city races for smaller cities within Montgomery County. There are some school trustee positions, and most especially what you should be aware of and look up is there are bond elections. So these would be taking on a significant amount of debt for the school district or possibly other projects. And again, I don't think there's any bond election for New Caney, but in Magnolia, there's a really big one for the school district. And a bond will result in more property taxes, and they make a lot of pleas for why they're necessary, but the problem is we know a lot of our money is mismanaged. So it's generally best to vote no on bonds, and possibly they'll then figure out if a bond fails, they'll figure out how to recalibrate, find a more affordable way of representing the bond or making ends meet. So this special election is really important to vote in if you are in a district with a bond, because there's also MUD, utility district elections in certain places, and these bonds can run millions and millions of dollars, and these special elections can be decided by just a few dozen votes. So it's really important you do your research and participate in the May 2nd special election. Now, the only official on the ballot in a legislative sense, there are city positions, but the only legislative position is Brett Ligon again, because he has to finish the term of, someone has to finish the term of Brandon Creighton, which lasts until January, when the new person will be sworn in. So it's unlikely that whoever wins would actually have a chance to meet in the Texas Senate or pass any legislation, but they might have some interim meetings, and it's just a symbolic remainder of the term. It's considered important for Republicans to turn out and vote for Brett Ligon, because if the Democrats win that seat, even for just that do-nothing remainder of the term, it'll give motivation, and more Democrat donors will pour money in for the November general election, in which Brett Ligon will be on the ballot for the full 4-year Senate term that he'll have coming up. So I hope that was clear. It's a little bit challenging to balance so many different things and to be an informed voter. So I have done my duty informing about elections as a Republican precinct chair, and also why the Republican Party as a whole considers it important to support Brett Ligon for this Senate seat. Now I'm going to say that I am an abolitionist first and a Christian first, and then obviously a Republican second. And I have felt very welcomed within the local Republican Party. I felt respected in my conviction as an abolitionist, and for the most part encouraged by the other precinct chairs, even if some of them don't quite fully agree with the abolitionist strategy. Most of them have been supportive of equal protection for the preborn, saying that preborn babies should have the same rights that you and I have, and that killing one of them is a murder, just as killing a born person would be. So I'm going to sort of take off my precinct chair hat, and I'm going to put on my abolitionist t-shirt, Abolish Abortion to the Glory of God, and I'm going to talk about an abolitionist strategy that I'm recommending for this special election of Brett Ligon. So if you've made it now 12 minutes in, I'm hoping it'll get a little bit more interesting now as I talk about voting while not voting. So this primary season, election season, is a really important time for activists, abolitionists, and concerned citizens to be involved in the process of supporting and selecting our new representatives and senators for all different positions. So Christina, my abolitionist mentor, and we reached out to different people who were running for office, and to try to reach an agreement with them and see if they'd be willing to support equal protection if they were elected to the legislature. And we're very thankful that that Miss Kristen Plaisance, that we supported, did win her election, and she says she will support equal protection. We simultaneously reached out to Brett Ligon, running for Senate, and asked him if he'd be willing to meet. We reached out in different ways, on his website, I think on his Facebook, and we didn't receive messages back. And normally this is a good time to talk to someone who's running to office, because they want to build bridges with the people who are going to elect them and build support, build their coalition. So I met Brett Ligon at a candidate forum, I believe in February or January, and approached him personally and asked him if he knew about equal protection and knew about the necessity for it. And the necessity is that in Texas law, specific exemptions are written in actual sentences in a few different places that say, our laws say that preborn life is valuable. It even says that preborn people are humans, not humans, persons. We have personhood in our Texas code already. There's a law that says, you know, if someone kills a pregnant woman, they're liable also for the death of her child. I think it can be treated as homicide in that case. But in wherever there is something addressing abortion or preborn life and death, there's an exemption written in which says this doesn't apply to mothers who choose to kill their babies or procure an abortion. In such cases, the abortionist only would be considered liable. Well, if I, as a mother, hired a hitman to kill my children, even if I wasn't doing the deed, I would still be liable. I would still be a murderess, and that would be just for me to be treated as such by the law. And now, of course, as most people know, most mothers are able to procure pills through the mail, and this is unlikely to stop, even though a law was passed last year in Texas that was supposed to restrict the passage of abortion pills through the mail. It's unlikely to have the effect that is promised, because the mail is federally protected, and these pills are tiny, and they're overall quite safe. And if a woman does have to go to the hospital, she can just say she's having a miscarriage. So anyhow, that's the backstory on where we are in Texas law. So I brought it up to Brett Ligon, and he chatted with me quite amiably, and he said he does understand that there is this loophole, but he doesn't feel that women should be prosecuted. And he tried to mollify me by saying that he's endorsed by Texas Right to Life, which, as an abolitionist, that doesn't mean anything. There are worse organizations out there, but there are lots of better ones. So he gave me his phone number, and I followed up and sent him a message asking if he'd be willing to meet with me and Christine, and he didn't answer. And we went through the primary election. Again, he was elected as the nominee, the Republican nominee, to be running for the Republican Party in the November general election and in this special election. So I decided to follow up with him once more, asked again for a meeting after the primary election was over. And he did reply, but he said, oh, maybe later, or pushed it off. So I feel that I've done my share of good faith outreach to him. And I really have the feeling now that he doesn't want to be on the record supporting equal protection for the preborn. He wants to avoid this issue. He wants to remain a milquetoast pro-lifer who passes pro-life bills that don't do anything to actually establish justice. And he's a very intelligent man, and if he had been able to give me the time, I would have really enjoyed asking him questions, because I meant to say this earlier, but I do respect him a lot, and he was really well respected as a district attorney. And I just thought, even if I wasn't able to persuade him to equal justice, it would have been really interesting to ask him questions. And I'm pretty sure that as a prosecutor, he's also prosecuted murders of babies by their parents, and he knows that it's a double standard to be willing to prosecute the murder of a born baby by their mother, and not willing to prosecute the murder of a preborn baby by his or her mother. So I would like to propose something rather unusual, which is I'm going to go in and do an undervote. And this is a specific strategy for people that are really politically dialed in. It means I'm going to go in and I'm going to walk up to the table and say, I want the Republican ballot, and I'm going to go, and again, New Caney has, I think, just maybe 2 things on the ballot, Brett Ligon and one other very minor position. And when it comes to placing a vote for Brett Ligon versus the Democrat for this remainder of Brandon Crichton's term through the end of 2026, I am going to leave that box blank, and I'm going to press next, which shows that I had the motivation as a Republican voter to come into the voting booth, but I didn't have confidence in the nominee to actually vote for him. So it sends a message, because they'll see a mismatch when it comes to my precinct, my area. It'll say, oh, there were, this many Republican votes, but Brett Ligon only received this many. Did those remainder Republicans, abstain, or did they vote Democrat? Then they'll compare against the number that voted Democrat. Oh, well, those people abstained from voting for Brett Ligon. And why was that? And it'll really send a message. And I believe we have quite a few abolitionists who live in Brett Ligon's district. If you just go in and type Texas SD4, Senate District 4 map, you'll find the map of Senate District 4. It reaches from actually northwest Montgomery County, and it kind of squiggles down, crosses over the top of Houston, and then down into southeast Harris County and parts of Liberty County. It crosses all different county lines, but it's like the area west of Beaumont and Port Arthur, up to the Ship Channel. It's a funny map. But anyway, we have quite a few abolitionists who live in this area, and I'd like to ask you all, reach out to Brett Ligon on his website, on his social media. Challenge him to stand for justice. He knows what justice is supposed to be, but he wants to further his political career more than he wants to stand for justice, I believe. He doesn't want to be on record as one of the first abolition supporting senators in the Texas Senate. He doesn't want to have that on his record if he perhaps one day runs for Texas Attorney General himself. He has his political strategy, which I believe he's caring more about than actually doing justice. And what does God want? What does God bless? Like, again, I've taken off my Republican Party hat right now. I have my abolitionist hat on. I'm here to support what God wants, to support God's laws, God's ways, and I don't want to always be factoring in calculus of which person is a tiny bit better or tiny bit worse than the other. For me, abolition is a really clear way to see the motivation in a person's heart, their motivation for running for public office. And I certainly don't have the confidence in Brett Ligon that he really has pure motivation in this. So please, I'm reaching almost 25 minutes. Join me, write it on your planner to go and vote May 2nd. I think early voting starts April 20th, really soon. And go ahead and look up your sample ballot, because you might have some other special elections depending where you are, and you want to vote no on bonds. You want to look up who to vote for other positions, but leave that spot blank for Brett Ligon, and send him a message. We are small in number, we people who care for biblical justice, but let us be a prophetic voice of what God wants in a legislator. And if Mr. Brett Ligon watches this, or one of his campaign, the offer is still there for Christina and me to talk to you. And again, I do respect your track record as far as I know as a district attorney. I do believe Ligon does care to a certain extent, about doing justice, but I think his eyes have been blinded by maybe political strategies and a willingness to just go along with whatever the law says without comparing it against God's higher law. So thank you. If you've watched this, please share it if you live in SD4 or Montgomery County, and God bless you and have a good day.